Okay,
Yeah.
good evening everyone and welcome to tonight's talk. Our guest tonight is Dakers Fleming, a local man who was educated at Belbaxter High School and then at Duncan of Jordanson College of Art, where he gained a diploma in architecture. He worked for 35 years as a chartered architect and is also a retired fellow of the Royal Incorporation of Architects in Scotland. Additionally, for over 30 years, Dakers, through continuous and self-taught professional development, has been in the forefront of computer-aided design. Dakers' day job now is as a partner in the firm Partners in Planning, as well as being a digital architecture illustrator. His voluntary activities include being a guide at Hill of Tarvit Mansion House, and he was also a past chairman of East Fife Member Centres of the National Trust for Scotland. A busy social life sees Dakers having been a past president of Newport-on-Tay Probus Club and also a past president of North of Fife Rotary Club. He has held a significant number of posts relating to architecture, including being chairman of the Jim Clark Memorial Appeal. Dakers has been married to his California girl, Patricia, an environmental space planner for 35 years. Their home is their studio, which they converted from a former parish church built in 1841. Hobbies include motorsport, photography, art, antiques, Apple technology, along with the necessary evil of gardening. Given his background, it is perhaps then not surprising that his knowledge of Hill of Tarvit Mansion House is second to none. I just want to add that we're having some technical difficulties, so I'm having to speak to Dakers on the phone as well, and the audio tonight might be not quite as good as it may be. But I'm going to let Dakers speak now before we start the presentation. Over to you, Dakers.
Thank you very much, Neil. I'm sorry I have this phone clamped to my ear, but this year has certainly been a very unusual year for all of us, and I congratulate your group for continuing to operate as a functioning group. This certainly isn't happening at many other places. Right, I'm wearing my National Trust uniform and badge, and I would say that when we give a guided tour of Hill of Tarvit, if we do a guided tour of a group, that usually lasts about 70 minutes. And then after that's done, when the house is open to visitors, as it were, rather than guided tours, then the volunteers are usually spread in various rooms about the building and can answer any questions that were raised in the group tours or in the rooms. Many of the volunteers we have are experts in many fields. My own wife, Patricia, is highly knowledgeable on French furniture. For instance, but we have experts on paintings. We have in the billiard room, for instance, we have a gentleman who shows trick shots on the billiard table. I see here I've got a Doris Rougevy terrible echo, cannot make out a word.
Yeah, well, we did, yeah.
Can I suggest that you just play the video?
Yeah, we'll do that, and yeah, because we knew that there would potentially be audio problems. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and do that, I think.
Okay.
And I'll hang up the phone as well, but we'll cut.
Yeah, that's fine.
Later, Dakers.
Yep. Okay.
Right. So. Come on. There we go.
Hello, my name is Dakers
Take
Fleming.
that, Alan.
I'm a volunteer guide of the National Trust for Scotland. I am usually based at Hill of Tarvit Mansion House, south of Cooper. I am happy to welcome Margaret's historical group and their friends, and I hope you will enjoy this rather unique tour of the Mansion House and of the estate. In this slide, we are looking down on Hill of Tarvit Estate. The red pin marks the position of the Mansion House. Down in the bottom left-hand corner is Scots Tarvit Tower. The diagonal road going from bottom to the left-hand side is the A916, that is the road to Cooper. Beyond and below Kingarrock Golf Course is Weems Hall Road. The next slide gives us a more close-up view of the Tarvit Mansion House. You can see the rose garden. You can also see the terraces which go down towards the golf course. The little cottage on the right-hand side is the clubhouse to Kingarrock Golf Course, and above that are the steadings. Above the mansion house, to the top of the slide, is another garden area as laid out by Robert Lorimer. Frederick Sharp lived a life that befitted a wealthy gentleman of finance. He became an avid art collector and connoisseur. He played golf at the Royal and Ancient in St Andrews. He was a philanthropist, helping to fund the maternity unit at Dundee Royal Infirmary. In 1904, Frederick Sharp decided that his state was now such as to deserve a more prestigious home in which to house his collection, and he purchased Weems Hall Estate. Frederick waited until he had established himself before thinking of marriage. He was in his 30s before he chose as his bride Beatrice, wife of Castle Huntly. Beatrice was a sister of his eldest brother John's wife Eleanor. Frederick was 35 when their first child, Hugh, was born in 1897, and 47 when a second child, a daughter, Elizabeth, arrived in 1910. In this wedding photograph, we see the happy couple. From left to right standing, we have Brother John, Frederick the groom, Beatrice his bride, and John's sister Florence. Beatrice never liked ostentation, and she would only allow herself to be driven in the Rolls Royce if the masket on the bonnet had been removed. It was a storybook upon middle-class life. Frederick Sharp, astute, charming, and rather autocratic, would be driven by his chauffeur in his Honda or Rolls Royce to catch the Dundee train at Cooper. There would be a little shooting, a lot of tennis, and some golf with his old friend Joseph Grimond, Joe Grimond's father, who shared his enthusiasm for collecting antiques. Frederick fell ill on August 32 and died while on holiday in Avonmore. He was to leave his estate to his son Hugh. Hugh served with distinction in the First World War. He was awarded the Military Medal twice. He had a successful financial career in London, and he was a great sportsman. He sailed his own yacht. He was chairman of Cooper Golf Club. He was also chairman of Cooper Rugby Club. He was an enthusiastic and expert skier both on the continent and in the Highlands of Scotland, where he was one of the pioneers of skiing as a holiday sport. In October 1937,
Hugh announced his engagement to Mabel Margaret Hogarth, daughter of a shipping family from Carpros near Hollinsburgh on the Clyde coast. Hugh made plans for a big celebration party for the estate workers and other friends in the hall of the neighbouring village of Ceres. He was travelling through to meet Mabel and bring her back to North Tarvit when he was killed in the Castle Carey train crash. Elizabeth never married. Her great love in life was the Girl Guides. She was Commissioner for Fife and Scottish Commissioner for Training and Camping, and did a great deal to keep the guide movement going during the Second World War. She was always happiest out of doors, particularly in the hills, and she loved camping. Elizabeth died of incurable cancer at the age of 38 in 1948. She'd already made careful provision for the Edwardian house her father had built for his art treasures and his little family. Joe Grimman, their family friend of long standing, was secretary of the NTS at the time, and with his help, he'd arranged to give Hill of Tarvit to the trust, along with an endowment to maintain it. Marie Curie Memorial Foundation from 1951 to 1977 used the upper floor of the house as a small convalescent home for cancer patients. During that time, the house was only open on a restricted basis. Scots Tarvit Tower was built in the 16th century, a residential tower house. It was embellished in the early 17th century by Sir John Scott. Scott, a lawyer, a man of letters, and author of a series of uninhibited biographical sketches of his countrymen entitled Scott of Scots Tarvit's Staggering State of the Scotsman. This is Weenchild. This is a property that Frederick Sharp bought, built in 1696 to the designs of Sir William Bruce. Beyond the main block, you can actually see 1840 extensions built as service accommodation. There is also a conservatory. It is this house that Frederick Sharp hoped to turn into his house for his collection, and it is this house that he asked Robert Lorimer to remodel. Robert Lorimer will be a name familiar to members of the Markinch study group, as he was responsible for remodeling the gardens at Balmurny House, and he was also responsible for designing the War Memorial. Frederick and Robert, in their different ways, were both deeply conservative men. Frederick, because he was conserving and husbanding the great Victorian legacy of wealth and manners and bringing it into Edwardian times. Lorimer, because he was conserving and modernising a great Scottish architectural tradition he'd learned to love at his family home not far away, Kelly Castle. This is the ground floor plan of Hill of Tarvit. Weems Hall, the 1696 block, is shown in red. The remainder is the extent of Hill of Tarvit. The extensions to Weems Hall are shown in an orange colour, and the original 1696 building was remodelled by the process known as demolition. Materials were salvaged and reused. The extensions, somewhat surprisingly, were retained, but of course they do have a slight Scottish look about them. Here is the ground floor plan, along with some notes of Robert Lorimer, taken from one of his drawings. You can see that he had already decided in many ways about the layout of the rooms and how they would work. It is difficult to reconcile the layout and the elevation treatment of Hill of Tarvit as Scottish traditional. It certainly isn't. Here we have the principal elevation to the south, and there is a slightly French aesthetic to it. Indeed, previous proposals by Lorimer had shown a much more French design than is actually carried out. This is the south elevation, as I've said, and open to the sun and to overlook the golf course. Moving on, this is the Rose Garden, much loved by Mrs. Sharp, and you can also see a balcony from the upstairs overlooking the Rose Garden. The statue, a pan, that is a replica made by my friend Alan Herriot, the Scottish sculptor. The original went for a walk in London. However, he was caught and brought back to Hill of Tarvit and now lives in the reception area of the building. All of the rooms have, all of the principal rooms look out to the south. Many have balconies that they can open out to, and also all of the ground floor principal rooms go out onto the terraces. It is a very open, sunny house, a very comfortable house to be in. Many people say, I can really live here, and so we could. This is the sculpture of the sundial. This is actually quite interesting. It gives the longitude and the latitude. It also gives us sundial. The interesting thing about the longitude is, there it is 12 minutes west. In reality, the longitude of Hill of Tarvit is 3 degrees 0 minutes 18 seconds west. Interesting that nobody had ever caught that, but there it is. This is the new house looking from the southeast. There are many areas to catch the sun in the gardens, and this little sun house, the wooden building, actually rotates. You can see the east wing 1841 extension, and it does have little Robert Lorimer dormers built onto the roof. Rather surprised that they did not appear on the east 1840 extension, which is shown here, which is virtually unchanged apart from chimney and from the way that the main Hill of Tarvit building actually wraps around. The lower single-story extension is the billiard room, and there is a sort of roof terrace which can be accessed. If we look the other way from the main entrance courtyard and look towards the northeast, this is what we would call the back garden. It's a very pleasant place to be, open to the sun, and it also gradually goes up the hill and allows access to the wood to allow you to get to the summit of Hill of Tarvit. Here we are, principal elevation. You can see the 1845 house on the left in front, the billiard room, the principal entrance, 3 large archways in a sheltered area, and then in through the main door, and of course the balcony projecting from the master bedroom on a bay window above the drawing room. Proceeding into the house via the main entrance, the entrance then leads into the hall and to the stairway. The hall is a major room, living room in the house, and from it all other rooms lead off. The plans as shown, north is to the top of the slide. The interior of the vestibule, of course, coats and a hanging area, lots of games, golf, billiards, croquet, tennis, etc. Everything was hung in here. And of course, we have the original Pan sculpture, now safe and sound and living indoors. From the vestibule area, we proceed into the hall. The hall is interesting in that we have the main public stair, which gives access to the billiard room. It also gives access to the principal bedrooms on the first floor level. To the west of the hall is the drawing room, which is the French room, and then to the east we go through a corridor, which gives access to the library and the dining room. This is the hall in 1910. Country Life published articles on Hill of Tarvit in 1910 and 1912. This was due to the Robert Lorimer publicity machine, and he had great ties with Country Life, who published his works. It's an interesting photograph. It shows the hall, very much recognisable as it is today, and probably not as much furniture. Here we are in the hall today, and also in 1994. Now, it is interesting that each photograph shows a slightly different approach to the house, and it's as the house has developed and more is known about it, that the furniture and the layout of the collection has gradually bedded down to what is seen today, or will be seen when it opens in April 2022. The drawing room is the French furniture collection, is done in the style of Louis XV and Louis XVI. Some of the furniture collection is original, some is reproduction, and one piece was vandalised by a US president. The no pictures rule was instituted by Robert Lorimer and violently disagreed with by Frederick Sharp. This is 1912 picture of the drawing room, and we see the door handles of Diana and Actaeon. Diana chasing Actaeon, who was disguised as a stag. One little perceptive 5-year-old, when I was telling this story, ran to both door handles and noticed that in actual fact they were on the wrong way round. Diana couldn't get her stag. This is the drawing room in 1994, and as you can see, the French drawing room is full of furniture from other eras. As for the no pictures rule, well, that has been ignored. I can't really say too much about these different areas and different methods of furnishing the rooms. It is a charming house in many ways, and we even have reference books. Alas, these are no longer on public display, but we have ABC, the ABC Directory, Whitaker's Almanac, Bradshaw's Railway Guide, and the Postal Guide. The ABC book, of course, formed the basis of the ABC Murders Mystery by Agatha Christie. If we look at the drawing room, these are more recent photographs. This is a room of desks. There are 7 desks in the room. There is an absolutely fascinating pendulum clock on the fireplace, and there's a photograph of me taking it there in the mirror. It's probably one of the most valuable clocks in the National Trust collection. It has currently stopped at the moment, as it needs a good overhaul. We normally progress from the drawing room through the hall towards the corridor, which leads to the library and to the drawing room. The hall was a family room. It has a rather large fireplace, marking the date of completion of the house of 1907, and 2 rather fine tapestries. The library is an Edwardian style room. It has a grape and vine ceiling, very reminiscent of that found in Craigie-Var. It has a good book collection. Hugh Sharp collected many first editions, and when he died, Mrs. Sharp gifted these to the National Library of Scotland, where they can be found. The library contains the Scottish paintings by Ramsay Rayburn. There is a painting by Fantan Tour, a special painting for Mrs. Sharp's birthday. It is probably one of the most valuable paintings as far as Frederick Sharp is concerned. Margaret Tindall Bruce. Well, if you know your history of Falkland Palace, Margaret Tindall Bruce was a great moving figure in the restoration of Falkland Palace. But that is another story, and there are guides at Falkland Palace who would be willing to show you that. The library contains some interesting furniture, including this rather cute baby chair. Was Hugh or Elizabeth ever in it? Well, it's certainly a fascinating thing, and it is really a beautifully made piece of furniture. One of my favourites. We have cloisonné birds on a fireplace on the mantelpiece. Unfortunately, one flew away. The dining room. Again, you can see it highlighted on the plan. It's Palladian in style to suit the Georgian furniture collection. We have Chippendale chairs and a remarkable dining table by Gillows of Lancaster. The woodwork in this room, although the walls look plastered, they're actually wood by Scott Wharton. The plaster ceiling by Thomas and Beattie and Sam Watson. Lorimer had his favourite car, a tradesman and craftsman he liked to use. Harlequin chairs, well, these are based on Chippendale designs, and each one was bought at a different time. They are apprentice pieces. This is the last piece that an apprentice would make before he became a qualified tradesman. Frederick Sharp collected these to form the collection that you see around the dining table. And this dining table is a remarkable thing. It folds down to become a hall-side table. The ceiling is an amazing ceiling in the house, probably the finest, beautifully made. It contains the initials of Frederick Sharp, Beatrice White, and the date when the ceiling was completed, 1905. Plasterers finished their work in 1905, and they certainly weren't coming back in 1907 to put the date of '07. The door to the terrace is through a hidden panel, and probably the most remarkable piece of silverware in the house is this Nefr. It is a centerpiece on the dining table, a conversation piece. It performs no function whatsoever. It is just there to be admired. A beautiful thing, it really is. The next plan shows the kitchen room suite, for want of a better word. It consists of a servery, pantry, kitchen, scullery. The laundry, in actual fact, was completely separate from the house, and I will show that later. The kitchen is a remarkably modern kitchen designed to fulfill all the needs of a busy Edwardian house. The kitchen itself is of great interest to many of our visitors because although it is 1903, 1904 through to 1920-29 kitchen practice, many of the items that are on display and were in use can be found in everyday kitchens of the current period, and it's a great attraction and talking point for many of our visitors. The house had an internal phone system from the servery to Mrs. Sharp's bedroom. It is one-way connection. Mrs. Sharp could initiate a call, the staff couldn't. 2 cold water taps to be found in the pantry and also in the servitory. Why 2? Well, Mr. Sharp did not like the water that was supplied by the estate and preferred to collect rainwater to do the dilution duties for his whisky. The laundry is a separate building away from the house and was fully equipped to maintain the laundry for what is actually quite a large house when you consider servants and staff. Another summer house, what I call the back garden, and this is up in the top northeast corner, looking over the whole of the garden and the estate. Turning next to ground floor again, the smoking room, also the billiard room. It has its own terrace. All of the rooms had terraces, but the billiard room used in the evening, north-facing terrace. Mrs. Sharp gifted the billiard table to RAF lookers, and it is returned back in its place complete with plaque. National Trust traded out with a new billiard table identical in every way. We normally have a guide who specialises in the game of billiards and can show very many skillful moves to our visitors. Here you can see the portraits of Frederick Sharp in his red coat, and also a much older when he was 69. The stair is a major stair. It comes off the hall and goes up to the gallery from which all the family rooms are accessed. There is no Elizabeth Sharp bedroom. She was born 10 years after the house effectively was built, and she stayed in the nursery. Her nursery suite be converted to her needs. We call it Mrs. Sharp's room. The date of the house is after Mr. Sharp's death. The room has a fine location on the south west corner upstairs. It looks over the golf course, it looks over the terraces, it looks up the drive, and it also looks to the east. It's filled with sun all day. Mr. Sharp had a dressing room. Jokingly, we often refer to it as Mr. Sharp's naughty room, but I prefer to take the view that Mr. Sharp, being the gentleman that he was, if he was leaving early for a meeting, or if he was returning late from a meeting, rather than disturb Mrs. Sharp, he would be asleep in his own dressing room. If you were lucky enough to be invited to stay with the Sharps, you would stay in what was called the dial bedroom. It's called the dial bedroom because it is the room next to the sundial, and that actually gives it only one window instead of two. Both rooms, Mrs. Sharp's and this room, have coffered ceilings which have the most incredible acoustic effects, and again we like to demonstrate these. Next to the dial bedroom is Hugh Sharp's bedroom. I don't believe for 1 second that Hugh had his own portrait, age 7, hanging above the fireplace. But around Hugh's bedroom is a collection of his mountaineering photographs. In the gallery outside Hugh's bedroom is also a collection devoted to his war career. Now, Kingarrock Golf Course. For those of you who want to know more about this, I can recommend Hidden Scotland, where you will find out a lot more about Kingarrock Golf Course. There is a map of the original golf course, and it is in the patrons room. The Sharps love to play golf. We have the golf course. This is the view looking over from Mrs. Sharp's bedroom window. Various terraces allow croquet, putting, etc., etc. Interestingly, in this photo is a little girl. Now, I don't know who she is. She's very young, and I don't remember her being there when I took that photograph. This is some of the detail work of Thomas Haddon, his ironwork in the gardens. We have the well outside the dining room, and we have the gate which leads up to the top of the hill of Tarvit. The wall to the left of the gate actually fell down several years ago and is currently being rebuilt. And now I see I'm getting to the end of my presentation, and this is the volunteers and staff who were involved in a Halloween experiment, and many of the staff are in costume, and I'm delighted to say that I am not. I am the one in the back row on the right hand side wearing the glasses. Finally, that is the end. Thank you for your attention, assuming you still are paying attention, and hopefully in 2024 too, I will be there to welcome you to Hill of Tarvit. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you very much. Good night.
Okay, well, a big thank you to Dakers there for that interesting tour of Hill of Tarvit House. As I said at the beginning, we are having some technical difficulties, so I think we're just going to kind of wrap this up quite quickly. And I apologise again for any audio problems. What you may want to do if you've been having trouble with the audio is that if you watch it again on YouTube, give it a day or so, and there should be subtitles. So that's always something to look out for. There's obviously a few people logged in tonight, and perhaps they have any questions. I would just have to kind of field them and pass them on to Dakers, because as I say, we're having problems with audio tonight. So if anybody's got any questions and they're logged into chat, you could type them in there. Failing that, you could email us. You could email us or contact us through our Facebook page or through the website if you have any questions. And Dakers has kindly agreed to deal with any questions. I would just pass them on to him. So if there's not any immediate questions, then I'll just say thank you to Dakers again, and once again I apologise for some of the technical problems. It's kind of almost inevitable, I think, with these kind of things. We're just trying to get through and do our best here, and we'll hopefully see you at the next one. So have a Merry Christmas. Our next talk is in January, so not the first Thursday in January, but the second Thursday in January. Hugh Hoffman, and there's been a murder, so we'll look forward to that one. So Merry Christmas and enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.